afternoon, everyone, or good morning, wherever you are. My name is Jean Gallagher, founder of Discover Rising Tides, and welcome to Show 40, Discover Rising Tides, How the Outside Makes the Inside Better, where we explore the importance of the outdoors in maintaining life balance. And through this series, we'll be talking to women business owners to understand their journey. And to get us started, as we've integrated into the program as permanent, Denise will have our healthy living, let me start that over. Denise will have our healthy living, happy life segment. And Denise Stegall is an author, curator at Living Healthy List and Healthy Living Liaison. And this month's topic she'll be talking about is nourishing ourselves. And also we will have Lynn Schuster-Williams in her Rising Up segment. And Lynn is an author and founder of Uprising, Unstoppable Powerful Women Community and producer of the Be More Conference. And then in between Denise and Lynn, we'll be talking with our main guest, Mary. And so first, let's get started with Denise. And how are you today, Denise?
I'm doing great. How are you, Jean?
Very, very well. Thank you. Good to have you here.
Good to be here.
And I'm really excited about your subject for the month and how it integrates with our talk with Mary Lummerding. So tell us about what you have for us today.
So today I'd like to talk about nourishment, not just about eating and food, but really nourishing our bodies and what that means and how we can do that. When we nourish ourselves with the right food, we are really able to give ourselves the energy and the oomph that we need. We always talk about, how the outside makes the inside better and vice versa. Mm-hmm. And so essentially, when we are nourishing ourselves by eating real food, those are the foods that are grown outdoors and nourished by the earth. So earth nourishing the food that we are then nourishing ourselves with.
It's amazing. And I think we're going to talk about this with Mary too. I know we are, because I'm going to bring it up. But a lot of people don't realize where their food comes from. And I live in California, and where a lot of the food for the United States is grown. And it's amazing what's behind how we get our broccoli to the table. But also, I think what's also important is to understand the quality of the food that we're using to nourish ourselves, correct?
Oh, absolutely. So you're in California where most of the food is grown, or a good majority of it. Mm-hmm. I'm in Minnesota where we grow corn and soybeans like in 4 months of the year. So the food that grows here is very different. We have a short growing season. So those of us who have farms and, some of the small farmers who are here in Minnesota, they really have a short growing season. And so what we can grow here is quite limited. And so we have to bring in a lot of food from different places. And when we think quality, we always think, fresh food or fresh veggies and fresh fruit is probably the best, but not always. In January, when, foods are maybe not at their peak, maybe that's the time to be actually looking to frozen vegetables as opposed to fresh vegetables, because one, they're not in season, and they may not even be in season truly where they're being grown. They're kind of encouraged to grow. Mm-hmm. But then, of course, the getting the food, transporting it from where it is to Minnesota or to wherever your table may be. There's a long time between picking food and it being picked up from the grocery store when you go shopping. And so the food quality, as soon as food is cut off the stem or the tree or where picked, the food quality starts to go down immediately.
Mm-hmm. And so how do we find out how our food is nurturing us, or how do we find out what foods we should be eating?
I always think, first and foremost, eat locally. If you're in California, that's easy. Mm-hmm. But also, even when you're here in Minnesota, eating locally is a little different. In the fact that I really encourage people to, in the summer times, and in the fall until till the first snowfall, to go to the farmers markets, to go even to the supermarkets, but really to the farmers markets and to buy food in bulk, to do some canning, to do some freezing. And so kind of like our ancestors used to. So this way, you know the quality of food. You know, if you buy food from a local farmer at a farmer's market, that they are they're usually smaller farms, and they'll tell you right as you walk in, whether they're organic or whatever you're looking for. Many of them here are organic, but not all. And that's okay, because truly when you're getting food from the source, is much better than food that you're buying that the supermarket is buying in bulk and transporting it. So that's one of the things that I say to tell people, is really try to do some of that in the summertime and kind of prepare. One of the things I always talk about is to plan, to prioritize, and prepare. And kind of like the story that always makes me, that I always think of is, in the summertime, the squirrels are still very busy, getting walnuts and kind of putting them aside, because in the wintertime, he's not going to have that, there's not going to be as much food around. So he has it stored. So he's already planning and preparing. It could be July and things are great. The weather's wonderful and the food is plentiful, but a few months later, it won't be. So kind of act like, the squirrel and start squirreling food away. And preparing it in a way that it can be canned or frozen. So you have it in the wintertime when those foods, especially foods like tomatoes, tomatoes this time of year here they have no taste.
Right.
Not exactly sure why we're eating them.
Right.
So, but if you've canned tomatoes or frozen tomatoes, I tend to slow bake them and then freeze them. They're incredibly delicious because they were picked at the peak of season, and then you cooked them and processed. I hate the word process, but in a way you process them in your own home. And so where the food came from, and it's high quality.
The quality really makes a difference with the nutritional value.
Absolutely. It does. Obviously, depending on where you live, there are foods that you're not going to be able to get locally. So you have to go to your supermarket and get what's there, purchase what's there. But again, if you can look to see what they have in the freezer, frozen vegetables are actually frozen as soon as they're picked. So they're actually picked and frozen really quickly after being picked. So it's at their peak freshness, which means best nutrition. So when it comes to quality, yes, sometimes frozen is actually better than fresh.
There's no question. Can of peas is really disgusting.
Ooh, yeah.
I'll tell you.
Yeah, canned fruits and veggies and beans are a bit of a challenge. I know for some people, cans of beans are a staple. The challenge, of course, there is, the metal that the cans are in, and metal contamination is a thing. But the metals, heavy metals do get into our body, and as we get older, it just accumulates. And we really don't know how that's going to affect our health at some point. Some people are very, very sensitive to heavy metals from canned tuna, canned beans, and it manifests in a way that they're sick, or they have an autoimmune disease, or they have something that the doctors can't exactly understand. And working with a naturopath, what I found many times with clients is there's a heavy metal issue. And so that's why I tend to stay away from canned foods.
And so as people are trying to figure out where they are within this nutritional journey, what suggestions or what resources do you have, or how can you give them a hand through that process?
Oh, sure. So the thing that I talk about is eat real food. And I talk about it in my book. I love that I always have this book right here, Healthy Living, Happy Life. And it's eat real food, make good decisions, and be accountable. And all three of them go together. Eating real food is really, for me, is the way to succeed in your professional, personal, physical goals. All of the things that we're looking to do in our lives starts with what we're eating. And so really looking at the, the real foods, which I mean, whole minimally processed foods as close to their natural state, fruits, veggies, whole grains, lean protein, and healthy fats. So if we focus on those as like an 80%, kind of like that 80-20 rule, if 80% of the time you're focusing on those foods, 20% of the time, you can have the donut or the pizza, which incidentally are my two favorite foods. It is not broccoli and it is not cabbage. I love pizza and donuts, but they are 20% of my, if that, they're 20% of my my diet, and 80% really is those foods that are nourishing my body. The donuts and the pizza nourish something a little different.
Yeah.
Let's be real. They're comfort foods, they taste good. And sometimes, you got to live a little.
Yeah, that's true. Every once in a while, the donut does help, but you can't grow the donut in the garden.
Cannot grow the donut in the garden. No. Again, those are kind of those occasional foods. I always talk to a children's group here locally, and I always ask them this one silly question: how often does mom make a birthday cake for you? And they will look at me like, well, on my birthday, one time a year, that day. And so, it's those occasional foods, or the foods we enjoy on an occasion, that make them special. If you eat them all the time, they're not special anymore.
Moderation.
Exactly.
Great. Thanks, Denise.
You're welcome.
It is very interesting. And then just to remind people, how can they get in touch with you or find out more?
They can always find me on livinghealthylist.com. That is my website. It is the free resource that I offer. You can find me there, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram under Living Healthy List.
Great. Thanks so much, as always.
Thank you.
Hello, Mary. And I think you might be muted. Check your, yep.
Okay.
Perfect. Perfect. Welcome.
Thank
And I'd
you.
like to introduce you, Mary Lummerding, and let me just read your quick bio and then we'll dive in. So Mary is an accredited chef and a cooking coach. And as a personal chef, she helps busy people make healthy, easy, cost-effective meals and have fun in the kitchen. A music selection like Uptown Funk by Bruno Mars is very helpful. That does help too. And occasionally we pause for some dancing. Good food helps us to be healthy so we can enjoy our lives. And Mary works with clients individually and in small groups. So welcome. I'm excited to have you here. And so tell everybody where you're located.
I'm in Victoria, BC, Canada, on the Pacific Coast.
The beautiful Victoria, BC, Canada. Yes. I shared with you my quick trip. We took the ferry over. We were there for like 10 minutes and we took the ferry back. Yes. Bad planning on my part, but it was gorgeous. Yeah. And I look forward to going back to spend some more time. And so, it's funny, as we unplanned, to be honest, that Denise's subject was really her subject this month was talking about nourishing, and how we had planned to talk about you and your practice and cooking and coaching, but also your gardening. And, yes. And so tell us a little bit about you and your journey and how things have started for you and where things are at now.
Thank you. Well, I did start as a professional cook. I earned my papers in Toronto and worked in restaurants. Then I moved on to the public service and raised my son. He's learned to cook for himself. Mm-hmm. And is doing really well. When he made sandwiches for himself, when he was working, he'd make his own bread, slice it about half an inch thick, cook his chicken breasts, and then make a sandwich. His sandwich was this big. People at work just laughed at him, but he worked in a warehouse and he needed lots of energy, so he's doing really well. And also we like to grow vegetables. My
Mhm.
husband and I rented some land for a while and sold at the local farm market for 3 years, which was a lot of fun because we grew a lot of different vegetables. So we had 7 kinds of radishes for a while. I made radish bunches that I would bunch together, and they look like a bouquet of flowers because of all the different colors.
Gorgeous.
Yeah. And we would also convince people to try different things like apple cucumbers or lemon cucumbers.
Mhm.
Because at the stores, they don't get that variety. They get the regular English cucumber or the little short one. So it was fun. And now we just have our own vegetable garden, and we can garden almost all year because it's so mild here.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did your business and cooking work towards becoming a coach in the kitchen?
Well, I like to encourage people to cook for themselves. With some planning, it can be done. We used to go out to eat regularly, but then we got kind of broke for a while and maxed out the cards. So I just said, that's it. We can't afford to go out. And I started to plan. And I hear from people, they don't even want to be in the kitchen, never mind cooking.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how do you make it more fun? And as a cooking coach, I encourage people to figure out how to enjoy their time in the kitchen. And also when they take cooking lessons, they go home with a fistful of recipes. Who knows if they have the skill and the ingredients, the ability to make it at home anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And do you think that so there's a lot of I don't know what you call them, mail order food dinners like Hello Fresh and all of that. Yeah. And so that's really, I think that hasn't that started or really ignited the thought process to cook at home?
Yeah, there's still 2 schools of thought because I've seen a lot of people resist cooking, but they're excellent. One of my friends gifted me a week with HelloFresh, and it was very interesting. The recipe cards are very helpful, and the ingredients make it really easy to throw together the meal. My friend's family gifted her 1 year of HelloFresh, and that got her cooking. So she reuses the cards and continues to cook.
And it really is all about breaking it down into smaller pieces so that it becomes more accessible or not so overwhelming. It's like starting anything new. And it's interesting because I came from a family of people that cooked. And it was, we never went out to dinner. There was always food happening, and we always had a garden. And my husband was a chef at one point, and our kids grew up in the kitchen. And both of our kids, my son and my daughter, are both very proficient. Yes, I know, right? Very proficient in the kitchen, and that just seemed normal to me. And then, the culture doesn't really make it that normal, unfortunately. Don't you find that true?
Yes, there's a generation that didn't grow up cooking. So now their kids are not cooking either because they've never seen their parents cook. And they think, well, it's dinner time. Where are we going to go to eat? Yeah. Right.
And so as you're working through what does it look like? So your coaching program, working with people in the kitchen, what does that look like? Is it different individually versus a group situation? And how does that work?
Well, if I'm working with an individual, we'll do an assessment together and figure out what their goal and reason for contacting me. And we'll check with their skill level, their tools that they have in the kitchen, make sure their kitchen's organized, and they have to be able to shop effectively, whether it's online or in person, knowing how to find food in the grocery store. I've seen guys with lists from their girlfriend, and they're staring at the mushrooms and deciding whether they want brown ones or white ones, and they'll stand there for like 5 minutes, so it's quite, I watch people at the grocery store, and it's just like, really? But yeah.
So you're sending them with a little bit more information than just the list.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I'll stop and ask if they need some help, but it's quite funny. And yeah, if I'm working with someone, we'll assess where they're at and where they want to go, and work together to develop a plan. And if it's a group, I have one idea about doing small groups, and that's around appetizers. So have an appetizer party and lead that into like a movie night. Instead of going to the deli and picking up all the stuff in the clamshells, that you can just buy a few ingredients and throw some appetizers together yourself. And that can be part of the party, is people working together in the kitchen getting ready for movie night.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. And so as you're helping people and walking them through the steps of how to begin, what do you think, how do we change this? I guess you are changing it, number one, by even by one person at a time or within your group situation. But what do you find that what is the hesitation of getting in the kitchen? What do you think that's preventing a lot of people from getting started?
I had one client who was told she was no good in the kitchen, and her husband always did the cooking. And I think she just needed a bit of guidance to be able to change it. I think it's just keeping reminding people that their health is at stake. Like that's a way of fighting cancer. A lot of cancers are tied to diet. There's the cost of food. People are being motivated to learn to cook because their health, their diet, social reasons. It's a way of getting together and having a good time with neighbors and friends and family. If you can bring them together and have a good time in the kitchen and then sit down and enjoy a meal together, so
and such a feeling of self-accomplishment too, bringing your friends and your family together, but also creating a meal together as well. It's not just the breaking of the bread part of it. It is, let's create and do this as a group to bring the fun into the fun into the kitchen.
Yeah.
What are some of the popular meals that people are asking for that you're providing guidance over?
Mostly easy things. Like one of my favorites is slow cookers. You can use a slow cooker and set up the ingredients the night before, and the kids can be helping with that as well. Then in the morning, you just throw it into the pot, turn it on, and then come home when you open the door after dinner, after work, and dinner is ready.
And the house smells good.
The house smells fantastic. Yes. So
I like the idea of getting the kids involved, because quite often children can be picky eaters. And having them involved, or having food being fun, can also help their curiosity level on, gee, what does this thing taste like? Or they can see how it was put together. So maybe they might be a little bit more open to try something different. Do you think?
Yes. And it also helps with making decisions. They can help to decide which vegetable goes in next, or which selection of vegetables. They can help with the selection at the grocery store. One of the things I actually learned from my husband was how to involve my son at the store, because it was so frustrating taking him shopping. And so he's the one that would fill the bag of the mushrooms and select the different vegetables and things. So getting the kids involved and making decisions, following recipes helps them with their orientation and with their brain skills. So there were a lot of different things involved in cooking.
There are some quite a lot of math skills. It's easy to learn fractions if you're cooking.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so let's talk a little bit about the gardening piece, because this is something for me. When my kids were growing up, and I was living in Maine, we always had a garden, and the kids were in the garden, the dogs were in the garden. It was okay because they were in charge of eating peas. They were really good at it without pulling the whole bush out of the ground. It's an art. And so let's talk a little bit about the gardening portion too, because I'd love to talk about farmers markets, because farmers markets, every Saturday I'm at the farmers market, and it makes me happy. It is a highlight. And so this time of year, even though in California, I'm in Northern California, so there are shoulder seasons of food, like Denise was talking about, buying what's in season. And so, but also shopping what's in season is also important. And so I wish, or I hope, that people have access to a local farmers market, because it does, not only does it provide you with fresh fruits and veggies, it is supporting your community and supporting the local farmers, but you also have a better idea of the quality of the food that you're buying.
That's right. Our grocery stores are starting to buy more of the local produce as well, which I think the consumer is driving. But if you can focus on that when you're shopping, like you say, that asparagus is coming out now, but it's from Mexico, and who knows what's been sprayed on it, so wait till the local asparagus is ready, for example. But the grocery stores, if you watch what the signs say, you can buy some very good local produce at the grocery store as well.
It is all about paying attention and making sure that you are conscious of what you're buying, and conscious of making the effort for finding something local, and looking in your area. What is it like in your area for finding a local farmers market, or what do you find is the best way to do that, and so that maybe other people have a better chance of finding a farmers market in their area?
Well, in my area, there are flyers that go out, and also the Facebook sites. There's Next Door Neighbor, I think it's called. There's an app that you can get, and you can ask your neighbors what's out there. I think they're getting very savvy at letting people know where their markets are, because if people aren't visiting the market, they're not going to survive.
Right.
So
right. Yes, and it is important to support the local farmers, and because the local farmers, their ability to continue is based upon your attendance, but also the weather too, depending upon where you're located, where people are located across the country, different growing seasons, but also different. One summer can be wetter or drier than another summer, and here in California, we're experiencing a ton of water.
Right. Yes.
Never thought I'd put those words into one sentence and then start it with California. So it'll be interesting to see what the effect of the rain that we're having has on the vegetables that the state is producing for us. So I think one thing that people don't realize, that a cucumber is not always green.
That's right. Well, yeah. There's the apple cucumber and the lemon cucumber. Another thing about buying vegetables, there's the boxes that you can buy for. There's CSA. I can't remember what CSA stands for, but there's a box you can buy each week, and quite often the supplier will give you recipes too, especially if it's something that you don't normally prepare. And sometimes people get too much of some things, but some of them let you choose what you pick each week. So you have to shop around and pick out a supplier that is going to give you what you need
That's really a great idea, Mary, because I think it's a community supported agriculture, CSA.
Okay.
And yeah, I'd look it up, but yes, but their farms in our area have CSA boxes as well. And also, you know, some of that takes away the time that it takes to go to the farmer's market, or it makes it more convenient, or the decision making, and you can receive a box every week. It's like Christmas. You don't know what's going to be in it until you get it. And,
That's right, yes.
and then that can also help plan your foods for the week. If you receive a new box, you have new foods, and you have some fun to work with it. So the CSA is a fantastic way. That's a great idea for people to look for in order to have a great assortment of fruits and vegetables.
Yeah. And people can grow some of their own vegetables quite easily. If they grow flowers, they can grow kale or chard, you know, and a few herbs. As long as you have a bit of sun. But if you don't have sun, then you find a family or neighbor, somebody who does have sun and would like to share a garden. And it can be quite easy.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that too, about growing your own or starting something. But before we do that, I'm going to take a segue back, because I had a little birdie whisper in my ear, and it was a really great idea, because, and I forgot all about this. I've heard about it, but I don't know much about it. It is the misfit boxes. And so what those are produce that's not perfect. Maybe it's not as shiny as it's supposed to be, but honestly, if it's not sprayed, it's not going to be as shiny as it's supposed to be, right? But it's still, but the nutrition value is probably higher. But finding a way for the misfit process, finding the misfit boxes, that's a really great way to get produce, and there's nothing wrong with it.
That's right. Yeah. If you're going to make banana bread, it doesn't matter what color, you know, if the bananas are kind of brown, or if you can get some that are brown and you're not using them all. I saw recently you can just mush them up, put them in a Ziploc bag and freeze it that way.
In the freezer.
Put them in the freezer.
Yeah, that's great. And then they're ready for you when you decide to bake that loaf of bread. Exactly. Yeah. So if somebody wanted to start their own garden, and you know, when you say start your own garden, it sounds like you're going to be hoeing an acre of dirt, right?
Right.
So let's break it down, because it can be containers on your back porch, right?
Absolutely. Or on your condo deck. One of my friends has a lot of pots around her deck. As long as you have some sun, you can grow something. And
so what are easy types of vegetables for people to start to grow?
Well, at the grocery store or your local garden center, you can buy the little 6-packs, and now they're making variety packages now. So some of them will have cauliflower and broccoli. Just put into a bigger pot, and you can buy the bigger pots through like a used site where people have extra ones. And because you don't need to go to the store and buy really expensive ones. You can save some of those clamshells that your spinach came in and fill it up with some dirt, pop some seeds in for lettuce greens, or buy some little plants for the lettuce greens and stick it into the clamshell, put it in some sunshine, give it water once in a while.
What a great idea.
Have your own lettuce.
What a great idea. And that's just reusing something that's going to go in the garbage anyways. And you can probably find some pots even on like a Facebook marketplace or something that would be fairly inexpensive to do the backyard or the condo deck gardens, containers. And so just as simply of going to a garden store, or even like a local Walmart or something, to find some good quality dirt. But I think that the dirt, I know the dirt is one of the most important parts to have good quality.
That's right.
And so what should people be looking for when they're buying? You're not just buying a bag of dirt. You have to make sure that it's correct.
When you're buying it, you want it from a reputable seller. But I think if someone is bagging dirt, it's fine when you buy it.
Mhm.
Keeping that level, so you have to like feed the plant afterwards.
Mhm.
You buy the dirt. I'm not an aficionado on
Dirt.
If I'm looking for a bag of dirt, when I was at the local store, I know the supplier that put the dirt together, and it also said that it had all these different like compost and the charcoal and different bits in it.
Yep. And so potting soil, and so finding a container, making sure that there's good drainage in the container, good quality potting soil, and then some seedlings, and making sure that there's sunshine and water, and the garden will arrive.
Yes. And if you have kids, then go for the cherry tomatoes, because they love picking off the tomatoes when they're ripe. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah, definitely. And so incorporating that into the activities for a family, I think is a fantastic idea to get the kids involved, for them to learn where does good quality food come from?
Yes. Yeah. Not just from a truck or a grocery store. It comes from dirt.
Yes. Exactly. And so as you're working through, or people either growing and using what they're growing, or they're buying at the farmer's market, or finding a good source of raw fruits and vegetables, then overcoming the anxiety of what the heck do you do with all of this, right? And really breaking down the skills of cooking, because cooking doesn't have to be that complicated. For me, I find if I have an onion and some mushrooms and celery, I've got the beginning of anything.
That's
it's
right.
And throw some peppers in there, and you have the trifecta of yumminess. So
it's just making sure that you have that in the fridge, because when you go to the grocery store, you have to remember to buy those kind of things, not just stuff at the deli. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So it's easier, honestly, it's easier to stop at the deli, but at the end of the day, it is really a lot more fun taking the time out. And you have to really schedule some time for some food prep, or you have to schedule some time for creating dinner, but it doesn't mean that it's a large block of time either. Putting together a quick dinner in 30 minutes is super simple to do. It's just having the resources and the education like you provide for your clients to have something to fall back on, have that 5 to 10 solid recipes that are going to work. And so once you have those consistent recipes, it gives you the confidence to go off the chart and change it up a little bit and throw something different into the same recipe. And now all of a sudden, with the same base, you have something totally different.
And also planning your day, because if you're doing a stir fry and you don't like cooking at the end of the day, take a break from work during the middle of the day or whatever you're doing, and chop up the vegetables in the middle of the day, stick them in the fridge, and then when you come to make dinner, you're just throwing it into the pan. You don't have to do it all at the same time. You can vary it through the day, because my energy is not always great at the end of the day.
That is true. And that's what makes us, I think, lazy at the end of the day. When you've worked all day long, the last thing you want to do is have to think about what's for dinner. But the pre-planning part, and you have that expectation that when you come home, all you need to do is toss it in the pan and go.
That's right. Yeah.
And so now do you teach in person and virtually, or just in person?
I can do virtually or in person. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So if people that are listening are not in the Victoria area, they're more than welcome to get in touch with you for virtual classes. And is it one class builds on it? Is it a one class, or do you have sessions of classes?
It usually takes a few classes, so it will work it out and figure it out how much. One person just wanted to learn how to make a cake. The one that was told she couldn't do anything in the kitchen. She wanted to impress her family making a bûche de Noël, a Yule log for Christmas. So we spent 2 sessions together, and then she made it on her own and sent me a fabulous picture.
Oh, how wonderful.
So, yes. So it depends on what their goals are and how much time and what they want. So
That's great. And so then you have the flexibility to work a program that's customized around what they're looking to do. And whether it happens to be a dinner item or a dessert item, whatever they need, you're able to work a program around them.
that's right. Yes.
That's fantastic. And so how do people get in touch with you, Mary? What's the best way to find you?
My website is kitchentimes.org. And my email address is chefmary@kitchentimes.org.
Okay, that's great. And so make sure that if anybody would like to set up a time to cook with Mary, please do that, because she has the knowledge and the knowledge base to do that. But I want to set the cooking part aside and just move on a little bit too, and talk about being outside and being in the dirt. And what does that do for you? And what do you see as you're talking with people? How does that change their inner being and their outlook on everything?
Well, just getting outside and it just feels so fresh. And after working in the farm markets, I got used to working in the rain as well. So the rain is just fine. You just bundle up a little warmer and make sure your head's covered. But I do Toastmasters as well. And they had a hard time getting me to speak up. And one of my friends told me that when I started talking about vegetables, I got loud enough and bright enough. And so, yeah, I'll talk vegetables any day, but it's just fun. It's nice to go out and weed the garden and make sure the plants are doing well. And like, it's time to trim the strawberry plants. So we'll go, because I know that if I take care of those plants, they're going to produce some beautiful berries for me, and I'll be able to have lots of yummy strawberries. So
they're going to take care of you if you take care of them.
That's right. Exactly. Yes.
And there is an inner peace that comes when you're just out there pulling weeds. And there is just it becomes you're in the moment. And for me, it is just it seems awful. I'm going to go pull weeds. Well, no, it's really great, because you're just being one with your garden, and you're making things become much more simple.
Yes. We also have families that quail, and we get to watch them walk around and they nestle into the dirt and stuff. It's fun to watch the birds play around in the garden.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, great. Thank you, Mary. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and thank you so much. And so as I said before, if anybody needs to get in touch with Mary, do reach out. We'll make sure her contact information is in the show notes. And it's been a pleasure talking. I love talking about gardening, and I can't wait for the rain to stop so I can be out in the dirt.
All right. Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. Hello, Lynn.
Hi, Jean.
How are you?
I am fantastic. How about you?
Wonderful. The sun is shining and I can't complain. Yay.
Yay.
So, Lynn, tell us what you have us today in your Rising Up segment.
Well, you just said part of it. The sun is shining and I'm better because the sun is shining. And what I want to talk about today is something I see my coaching clients struggle with a lot, whether it's in sales coaching or whether it's in transformational work. People get stuck in this go with the flow versus structure dichotomy, right? It's like, can I just go with the flow, or do I have to like plan everything and have structure? And definitely there are personality types that prefer one or the other, right? But all of us have this like kind of what is it? And I want to say it can be both. And nature is a great model for how this can be. So I want to think about the analogy of the structure of the seasons. If you live where there are 4 seasons, as I do in Kentucky, you know, we have a definite spring, a definite summer, a definite fall, and a definite winter. And that's a structure. But you never know day to day, especially in the Ohio River Valley, what that structure is really going to look like. And there is no rule, right? The weather and the development of plants and what the plants are doing under the ground and all that stuff is totally in the go with the flow inside the structure of the seasons. And Jean, I had an opportunity this spring, at the very beginning of spring, to travel from Kentucky to Massachusetts, where, it's several weeks behind us, right? And so,
Or months.
right. And so as my allergies had just started to make themselves known in Kentucky a little bit, then we went to Massachusetts and they were gone, right? Those pollens that were coating my car and making them that lime green color, it was just gone. And then it was so interesting. We were there for 6 days. So we were gone almost a week. And when we got back, home looked completely different, right? There were flowers blooming that hadn't been blooming. Trees had leaves that hadn't had leaves. It was much, much greener at home than when we left. And it was such a great object lesson in go with the flow inside the structure, right? And so that's the tip from nature today is let's all see how we can be in alignment with what we've come here to do and who we've come here to be inside of the structure that helps us get stuff done. So there you go, Jean. Let's rise up.
I love that. Thank you so much, Lynn. Thank you very much. And I love the fact that you notice the changes and going with the flow can also be so different if you were involved during the changes and how different both same time frame, but how different both aspects can affect you. That's brilliant.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening today. Today's show was sponsored by Seaside Solutions, my financial services company. As a business owner, it's easy to be pulled in many different directions, and often taking care of yourself plummets to the bottom of the list. For me, I find myself outside to reground. My time outdoors helps me manage my day more effectively and be more present for my clients. Through this, Discover Rising Tides was born. At Seaside Solutions, we truly believe that education is the foundation of financial wellness. Our primary focus is to provide guidance that is designed to help you achieve your long-term financial goals and visions. Working with a plan allows space for doing more things that you love, like being outside to make the inside better. If I can help you create or realign your plan, or if you would like to be added to my weekly newsletter, please let me know. This week's topic was 5 ways to set more achievable goals. Your referral means the big, beautiful world to me. And if I can help, please let me know. And thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.